Toto Wolff does not rattle easily. He has run Mercedes through 8 Constructors' Championships, navigated 3 regulation changes, and watched Ferrari try to close the gap every single year. But after the Austrian Grand Prix, Wolff said something to the media that deserves more attention than it got. He said, "We are a little surprised that Ferrari can throw such massive upgrades at the car the way they do. Equal rules for everyone, hopefully." That word, hopefully, is not a throwaway. Wolff was standing in front of journalists at a circuit where Mercedes had just won by managing the race, and he was expressing surprise at Ferrari's rate of development. Not concern about their pace, not frustration with their strategy, surprise at the rate. And now Ferrari is bringing another 3-component upgrade package to Silverstone: an updated Macarena wing, a new low-drag diffuser, and a revised exhaust system. In the same breath, one American motorsport outlet ran an editor's note asking the question Wolff would not ask publicly. It read, "Where are they burying the costs?" To understand why Wolff's surprise matters, you need to understand how Formula One's budget cap actually works, and specifically how it creates space for teams to do exactly what Ferrari appears to be doing. The 2026 cost cap sits at approximately $95 million per team. That sounds like a ceiling. In practice, it is a framework with exclusions. Driver salaries are excluded. Marketing activities are excluded. Power unit development, up to a defined limit, has separate accounting under the ADUO framework. Tooling costs can be capitalized across multiple seasons. Costs allocated to road car development can be ring-fenced under certain conditions. The cap audits what teams report. It does not audit how they structure what they report. Ferrari's approach to cost management has been a specific subject of discussion inside the paddock since the second race of the season. Their upgrade frequency every race, sometimes mid-race week, has been described by 2 separate paddock sources as unusual for a team supposedly at the cost cap limit. Wolff's exact word was surprised. Not concerned, not angry. Surprised. That is the tell. A man who runs the most dominant team in Formula One does not use that word accidentally. There are 3 possible explanations for how Ferrari is sustaining this upgrade rate. Each one has a completely different implication for Hamilton's title fight, not just this season, but next. And none of them have been discussed seriously in the coverage of Ferrari's Silverstone package. The first explanation is financial engineering, and it is the most straightforward of the 3. Ferrari is not simply an F1 team. It is a listed company on the Milan Stock Exchange with road car operations, a merchandising business, a theme park, and a brand valued at roughly $30 billion. The F1 team sits inside a corporate structure that allows legitimate cost allocation between the racing program and the broader Ferrari business. Every engineering hour that produces insight applicable to Ferrari's road car development. Every wind tunnel run that informs the aerodynamic profile of a new prancing horse road car. Every piece of tooling manufactured for a component that will be reused across multiple seasons rather than discarded after one race weekend. Each of these has a legally defensible argument for partial exclusion from the cost cap calculation because the cap covers F1 team expenditure, not Ferrari SPA expenditure. The cost exclusions list under 2026 FIA financial regulations runs to 47 separate categories: driver salaries, senior personnel above a defined salary threshold, marketing activities and hospitality, historical car programs, certain manufacturing costs where tooling amortizes across seasons, power unit development costs up to a separately defined limit under the ADUO framework. The cap is not a single number applied uniformly. It is a framework with categories, and the teams with the most sophisticated corporate structures, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull through its Oracle partnership, have the most options inside that framework. This is not unique to Ferrari. All of the major teams manage costs with sophisticated internal accounting. The difference is observable at the track. Ferrari's upgrade frequency in 2026 new floor in Bahrain, Macarena wing in China, suspension revisions in Miami, ADUO power unit in Austria, and now a 3-component aero package for Silverstone, is visibly higher than competitors operating inside the same declared budget ceiling. Either Ferrari is finding legitimate exclusions that others are not using as aggressively, or there is a gap between what the cap says on paper and what Ferrari is spending in practice. The specific possibility being discussed in paddock circles, not on record, not an official finding, is that Ferrari is front-loading development costs this season with a strategic plan to absorb the financial penalty in 2027. The cost cap penalty structure for a minor breach defined as up to 5% over the limit is a combination of a financial fine and a reduction in aerodynamic testing time. For Ferrari, if the decision is between winning a Constructors' Championship and Lewis Hamilton's first title in 2026 versus losing wind tunnel time in 2027, that may be the most rational trade available. Specifically because the 2026 technical regulations are fundamentally different from what arrives in 2027, making aerodynamic carryover from one season to the next less valuable than it would normally be. The second explanation is the ADUO framework, and this is the one that the coverage has almost entirely missed. ADUO, the FIA's equalization mechanism, was designed to bring power unit performance closer together by giving weaker power units additional development room. Ferrari received 2 development tokens after the FIA judged their ICE to be more than 4% below the Red Bull benchmark. What the coverage did not explain is that ADUO tokens also carry a separate development accounting treatment. Engine components developed under an ADUO token, the cylinder head, the turbocharger, internal combustion architecture, are assessed differently under cost cap rules because they are classified as performance equalization measures rather than standard development. In practical terms, the ADUO token Ferrari deployed in Austria and the second token covering the new turbocharger that arrives post-summer represent development investment that does not count toward the cap in the same way a standard aerodynamic upgrade does. Ferrari is not just getting more powerful, they are getting development room that their competitors at the cost cap do not have access to, and they are layering aerodynamic upgrades on top of that power unit development room in a way that Wolff, who runs the benchmark power unit against which Ferrari's deficit was measured, has publicly called surprising. That combination ADUO development headroom plus aggressive aerodynamic investment is the structure that produces the upgrade frequency Silverstone is about to receive. The counter-argument is the most important one to address because it is the argument Ferrari would make themselves. Ferrari have not been found in breach of the budget cap. The FIA's cost cap administration team conducted a full audit last season. Ferrari were compliant. The FIA is not investigating Ferrari for cap violations in 2026. Every upgrade Ferrari brings to Silverstone has been through the technical and financial verification processes that the FIA operates. If the upgrades were cap violations, they would not be on the car. Toto Wolff's surprise, the counter-argument goes, is competitive frustration dressed up in diplomatic language. Mercedes has won 7 of 8 races in 2026. They are not losing the championship fight to Ferrari's upgrade rate, they are winning it. The surprise Wolff expresses is the surprise of a dominant team watching a challenger spend at a rate that does not add up on paper, without being able to point to a specific violation. That is not evidence, it is suspicion. And suspicion without a finding is noise. Here is why the counter-argument is incomplete. The FIA's cost cap audits operate on a lag. The 2026 season accounts are not audited until well into 2027. The FIA found Red Bull in breach of the 2021 cap in October 2022, more than a year after the season in question. Ferrari's 2026 accounts will not receive their final verdict until next year. What this means is that the Silverstone upgrade package arrives before any financial reckoning. The surprise Wolff is expressing is not about a confirmed violation. It is about a rate of spending that does not match what should be possible under a cap that is not yet audited. And in Formula One, the gap between what is possible and what is audited is exactly where competitive advantage lives. Connect this to Hamilton's title fight, and the implications become very specific. Hamilton is currently third in the Drivers' Championship. Kimi Antonelli leads. Mercedes has won 7 of 8 races this season. The one exception was Barcelona, where Hamilton won by managing the SF26's strengths and the race conditions in a way that the telemetry from that weekend still has not been fully explained by either team publicly. This is a sprint weekend at Silverstone, which means a maximum of 33 additional points are available across the sprint race and Grand Prix, combined 8 from the sprint shootout pole and sprint race result, 25 from the Grand Prix. A perfect weekend for Hamilton's sprint win, race win, with Antonelli finishing second in both closes the championship gap that is still significant. But it converts a gap that feels insurmountable into a gap that 3 or 4 strong weekends can close. An imperfect weekend, Hamilton fourth in the sprint, third in the race, extends the deficit past 60 points, at which point the championship mathematics become very difficult across 14 remaining rounds. The sprint format itself creates a specific strategic problem that the Silverstone upgrade package is designed to address. Teams get 1 free practice session, 60 minutes, Friday morning before sprint qualifying locks in the car configuration under Parc Fermé. If Ferrari arrives at Silverstone with an upgrade package that needs data to optimize, that 60 minutes is all they have. Vasseur explicitly said after Austria that the team paid the ultimate price because they failed to execute long data-gathering stints during Friday practice. Silverstone is the next test of whether Ferrari has learned that lesson, and the upgrade package arriving this weekend is significantly more complex than what they brought to Austria. The Silverstone upgrade package Ferrari is bringing is specifically designed to address the 2 problems Austria exposed. The Macarena wing update and the low-drag diffuser target straight-line speed the gap Hamilton described as the deployment tail-off that hurt him most in Spielberg. The revised exhaust system, if it runs, ties the FTM exhaust blowing effect directly to the Macarena wing efficiency, creating a combined aerodynamic package that Ferrari believes will behave differently on Silverstone's high-speed corners than it did on Austria's altitude-stressed power circuits. If this package works as Ferrari intends, Hamilton has a genuine chance at Silverstone. The SF26's chassis through Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel is by multiple accounts the strongest car through that complex on the grid. Combine it with improved straight-line efficiency and Hamilton's 9-win knowledge of this circuit, and the argument for a competitive race result is real. Here is what the budget cap question changes about that narrative. If Ferrari is sustaining this upgrade rate through a combination of ADUO accounting treatment and cost cap management that results in a 2027 penalty, then the Silverstone package is not just an upgrade, it is a bet. Ferrari is betting that wins in 2026 are worth more than wind tunnel time in 2027, and specifically that Hamilton's first home win in Ferrari red is worth absorbing whatever the FIA's 2026 audit produces. That is not a cynical calculation, it is a strategic one. And it is exactly the kind of decision that a team makes when it believes this year's driver on this year's car at this year's circuit represents a once-in-a-competitive window opportunity. The last time Ferrari ran this kind of championship gamble was 2022. Leclerc led by 46 points after Bahrain. The car was fast. The upgrades were flowing. The title went to Verstappen anyway, but not because Ferrari was wrong to try. They were wrong in execution, not in ambition. Hamilton is not Leclerc. The 2026 fight is not the 2022 fight. But the shape of the bet Ferrari is making at Silverstone, spend now, absorb later, win while the window is open, is recognizable. And Wolff's surprise is the sound of a man watching someone else make that bet and not being able to stop them. Before I give you the verdict, the Antonelli versus Russell dynamic inside Mercedes is the next thread that directly affects how this title plays out. Jenson Button said this week that the Mercedes car has gone a little bit away from what Russell's style requires. If that analysis is correct, and if Ferrari closes the gap at Silverstone, the championship does not just become Hamilton versus Antonelli. It becomes a three-way fight where the weakest car on the straight is driven by the man who knows Silverstone better than anyone alive. Ferrari is bringing 3 upgrades to Silverstone. Toto Wolff is surprised they can afford them. The FIA's audit will not land until 2027, and the cost cap structure creates enough legitimate space between ADUO accounting, tooling amortization, and the audit lag that being surprised and being right are 2 completely different things. Here is my verdict. Ferrari is not cheating, but they are operating at the aggressive boundary of what the cost cap framework allows, in a way that their competitors have noticed and their competitors' team principals are commenting on publicly. That is not an accusation. It is an observation about where competitive advantage is found in a capped environment. The upgrade at Silverstone is real, it is targeted, and it addresses specifically what Austria exposed. If the Macarena wing and low-drag diffuser deliver the straight-line efficiency Ferrari needs, Hamilton has a realistic shot at his 10th Silverstone win and his first ever in Ferrari red. That would change this championship. My specific take: the budget cap question does not resolve this season. It resolves in 2027. What resolves this weekend is whether the aerodynamic package works in Silverstone conditions. If it does, the title fight is open. If it does not, if Ferrari again lacks the straight-line efficiency to fight Mercedes through sectors 1 and 3, then the Wolff surprise becomes something more pointed. Because you cannot absorb a cap penalty in 2027 and also fall further behind in the 2026 championship. You have to win with the gamble to justify it. Here is the debate I want you to settle in the comments. Ferrari is spending at a rate that surprises the most successful team principal in modern F1 history. 3 explanations: financial engineering within the cap, ADUO, accounting treatment giving them extra room, or a deliberate plan to exceed the cap and absorb the 2027 penalty. Which one is it, and does it matter for Hamilton's title chances this year? Give me your specific argument, not just a pick. On Saturday, after sprint qualifying and the sprint race, I will be back with the first real data point on whether this package actually works. Subscribe now so you are there when that analysis drops. And if you want the technical breakdown of what Ferrari's ADUO upgrade actually changed in Austria and why Hamilton specifically called out the deployment tail-off, that video is on screen right now. Watch both. They connect.